Hey everyone, welcome to Machines and Money. Today is the first official video issue of the midweek market check. This is a series we put out every Wednesday where we cover the state of the crypto market by looking at Bitcoin as well as altcoins, and then within the altcoin market, the DeFi20 Index tokens, and just look at any charts that stand out within that group. So we're going to start with Bitcoin today as we normally do. There's a few things here on the chart in front of us, first of which is the range here from 82K to 61K, and this represents the overall channel that Bitcoin has traded in since really the beginning of February. So it's been almost 5 months now, and it's still within this range. It's not unusual to see after a big capitulation move like this. First you see a big down move, and then you see sideways movement, and then you see either another leg up or down. And there's a few reasons I've laid out in prior issues of midweek market check why I think we're much closer to a bottom than a top, and I'll get into that today as well. A couple other things to note on the chart are this white line, which is the 200-day moving average, and then this yellow line, which is a 13-day exponential moving average. So right now Bitcoin is testing once again the bottom of this range, and by the end of the video it might be below it. We'll see. It briefly dipped below 61K right before I started recording, and it had these couple wicks over here, so if it did dip below it, it would not be the first time. But I wanted to also give some more context in just how bad this capitulation was and what usually happens after that sort of sharp down move in the months following. So I went back and I looked at how far below the 13 EMA and the 200 SMA Bitcoin went during prior crashes, and it didn't quite make the benchmark that I was looking for during this, but it was very close. And we will see that the last time this event triggered was all the way back here in the Terra Luna collapse. So there are two blue lines down here that are something we're going to focus on when looking at this. The first one is the distance below the 13-day EMA, and this red line on the chart marks minus 0.2. So when Bitcoin goes 20% or more below the 13 EMA, then it is one part of this signal. The other part is when it goes 40% below the 200-day SMA. So in order to fit this criteria for a major down move, a major capitulation event, I found that Bitcoin typically during those times goes at least 20% below the 13 EMA and at least 40% below the 200-day SMA at the same time. And this has only occurred a few times in history, and it got very, very close this past February. So we can see that, again, it happened here in June, and it didn't mark the bottom, but it got very, very close. So this last day that it was 20 and 40% below those respective lines, it bottomed out at about $17,585. And then, of course, we had the FTX collapse over here. Who knows whether it would have made a new low if FTX hadn't collapsed right there, because it looked like it was actually setting up to make a rebound and another attempt at crossing the 200-day MA right here. But then the whole FTX situation resulted in another leg down. And it wasn't as bad as you would think, considering the magnitude of FTX. It was one of the biggest exchanges in the world, and its collapse only really caused a 25% drop. So most of the selling by that point was already done, and that was the final kind of event that washed out really all the sellers in the market. And so we can see that if we take the price from this point where it bottomed out on June 18th, 2022, and we go down to the low in November, it was about a 12% drop. Then we can go back to the previous point where this event occurred, which was all the way back at the COVID crash. And on that date, it bottomed out at about $4,673. It actually made a wick lower the next day, which was kind of the same event. This crash happened overnight, so it was really a 2-day event there. But it also triggered on March 16th, and then it was really up only from there. After this major washout. This was obviously a black swan event that was one of the worst 1 to 2 day ever periods in crypto, but it marked the absolute bottom, and from there it was up like 20x over the next couple years, or even over the next year. So going back further, we can see that this also happened in 2018 in November. That really was a major marker of the end of that bear market. So on that day, it bottomed out at 36.56, and then it actually made one small leg lower here. And if we take the overall drop, we can see that it went down about 14.5% from the bottom of that candle. So again, it didn't mark the bottom. I think trying to call tops and bottoms in general is kind of pointless. I think that what is more important is being able to gauge whether or not you're close to a top or a bottom, so you can scale in and out of a position accordingly. And if we go back further, this did not happen at all until 2015. So again, this has only happened a few times in Bitcoin's history. And it happened on January 14th, and that day it bottomed out at $166. It actually made a new marginal low intraday, August 18th, which was like a flash crash. I think Bitcoin fell 40% in a day. Obviously, liquidity conditions were not what they are today back then. So this type of event was much more of a risk. But really, this marked pretty much the low, unless you're counting like a $5 difference over here in August. And there was a decent rebound after that. And again, after this capitulation, black swan, flash crash event in August, it spiked like 200% over the next 3 months. So zooming out, we can see that this has only happened a few times in Bitcoin's history. 2015, 2018, 2020, 2022. And now it's happening again in 2026, almost. It's actually not officially, like I said, it's not officially minus 20%, minus 40% below these lines. It actually was 39% below the 200-day moving average, but I think we can count it. There's nothing really special about 20 and 40%. It's just that Bitcoin has rarely fallen below those levels by that magnitude in its 17-year history. So we can go ahead and I think we can count this, to be fair. And again, this isn't to call the lows or anything, but it bottomed out 62, 257 on that day. And since then, it's mostly stayed above that price. It had a marginal new low here, just like it had marginal new lows in 2015, 2018, 2022. But again, there is some room, I think, for it to move down a little bit more. If you take, a 15% drop like it had in 2018 after it had this signal, that would put us at about 53K. So worst case scenario, based off of Bitcoin's history, I would say that 50 to 55K is a bottom to look for, and we might not even get there. So I try to find these rare kind of events that signal capitulations in the market, because these events are what really matter in terms of just getting rid of all the selling, the sellers in the market, and resetting. Because in order to reset, you need a capitulation like this. We also had the stretch unwind over here, and technically that's still ongoing, but the initial impact of that, I think, was a majority of the impact that we'll see, unless MicroStrategy has to sell like a ton of their Bitcoin, which they probably won't have to do because they have a cash reserve of over $800 to $900 million. So they do have a cushion there as well. And again, this Michael Saylor exiting Bitcoin or selling some Bitcoin, even though it was just a small amount, just the fact that he did that, I think, would have been a much more major shock to the market had we been in a bull market when that happened. It would have caused a major drop that would probably result in a series of lower highs and lower lows. Instead, we got just a marginal new low in the middle of a bear market. And that's the kind of confirmation you want to see when you're looking for overall like bottom area in the market. So now looking at history, we're probably 15 to 20% max from a bottom if we're not already there. So just wanted to put that on everybody's radar. Now we can move on to some altcoins. Looking at the overall altcoin market by others BTC, this is the ratio of others to Bitcoin. And others, just for context, is the total market cap of the altcoin market or the crypto market, excluding the top 10 tokens by market cap. So it gives us a good sense of what the smaller tokens are doing. Right now, others, I think, only takes up about 8% of the market. But you can see that others have been really outperforming Bitcoin for a while now. And I showed in last week's video that it made a 16-month high back here, this ratio, back in early June. Now it looks like we might be setting up for another leg higher, which means altcoins should do pretty well here if this ends up being like a double bottom. Another signal here is combined with the bounce here off of the blue moving average is the reversal in trend of the MACD. So as I've pointed out before, when the fast moving average, which is this blue line here in the MACD, starts to move down slower than the orange line, and when they're both close to the zero mark, the color will shift from dark red to light red, and that is historically a really good indicator of a trend reversal. And I showed that last week on monthly charts. It works really across any time frame from what I've found. It's pretty reliable. It happened here in mid-June. It happened, well, the reverse of it happened here in December. That one didn't end up playing out. Obviously, not every signal or any signal will not have a 100% success rate. This one didn't work out either. In September, it didn't really move higher. This one did work out. You can see the MACD trend change here, along with a slight dip below the moving average range, but it started a pretty strong uptrend there for the following couple months. The reverse happened back here in April 2025 and March 2025, and those downtrends continued after that signal. And then we have, I think that was the last one that I made. Obviously, this signal happens, several times a year within any asset, and it looks like it's going to happen again if the prices hold for the rest of today. So that's altcoins compared to Bitcoin. Altcoins, on the other hand, are not looking so great. Just because Bitcoin is down, altcoins tend to follow. Even while they may outperform, that might just mean they don't go down as much as Bitcoin. A couple that are standing out, though, are Aerodrome, which made a new marginal high here after this rally in May. So that's been much stronger than Bitcoin. It's also above the 200-day moving average. If we see further weakness in Bitcoin, we might see it retest that. But currently, it's about 15 to 20% higher than that. Jupiter is another one that's been strong, and that's actually up solidly today, despite Bitcoin being down. That one's also above the 200-day moving average, and the overall moving average range is now in an uptrend. Some ones that don't look as good are Aave, which you could see the reverse of that bullish scenario playing out right here. The MACD trend changed in a bearish manner here, and also it's kind of had resistance around this level, so it's kind of fighting an uphill battle. Athena is another one that's now below the moving average range, and also the MACD looks pretty bearish. Same thing for Euler, and Pendle is another one that's really made a big drop over these past few days. Syrup, the token for Maple Finance, is another one. You can see the MACD reversal along with the price moving down sharply here the past couple days. And lastly, Virtuals is another one with this clear downtrend. And once it reaches, 5 days in a row of this, it might be a temporary bottom, but the trend overall still for Virtuals and some of these other tokens looks pretty bad. And unless we see a reversal in Bitcoin, that's not likely to change. They might outperform Bitcoin, but again, that just means they might go down less than Bitcoin, but still move down. Another one that I wanted to point out is Morpho, because this one has been a relatively uncorrelated asset, or even negatively correlated asset to the overall crypto market. Even though it's, an altcoin, it kind of moves differently than a lot of other ones. It's a bunch of times when the broader crypto market is bearish, Morpho has rallied. This hasn't been the case the past few days, but it is right now bouncing off of the 200-day moving average. Dropped a little bit below it back here, but we can see that this might be a support level to watch. If we zoom out to a weekly time frame, we can see that the $2 to $2.20 range has been pretty sharp resistance. It had a breakout here temporarily in August of last year, but it quickly came back below, and then several times here throughout the remainder of 2025 it tried to break into that range and above it and failed each time. It's really done the same thing several times here in 2026. But again, the 200-day moving average, this white line, could be a support level to watch. That is all for today. I hope this video was informative. If you enjoyed the content, definitely be sure to go to machinesandmoney.beehive.com. Link is in the description below, and subscribe to the newsletter to get weekly updates on the market, as well as insights into interesting projects within the crypto space and updates on the Machines and Money portfolio. So that's it for today. I appreciate everybody for watching this, and we'll see you next time.